Welcome to The Nation Diplomatic Dispatch, your window into the world of diplomacy and global affairs. In today's episode, we'll be discussing Malaysia-Australia relations with His Excellency GERHARD EISL, the Ambassador of Austria to Malaysia. As Malaysia and Austria continue to strengthen their partnerships, we explore what lies ahead for ties between the two nations. Ambassador EISL, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much for hosting me. Selamat tinggal hari and salam Ramadan.
Thank you, very nice. Your Excellency, since Austria and Malaysia established diplomatic ties in 1962, how would you describe the current state of our bilateral relations, particularly in trade, investment, and high-value industries like semiconductors, automotive, and advanced technology? What do you see as key factors that make this relationship excellent?
Well, Austria and Malaysia, we are 10,000 kilometers apart, but there's so many things which are common to both of us. I mean, you mentioned trade, this is one thing. We are both open economies, dependent on trade, but we are also both military neutral countries. Austria, Malaysia, and when you look at the map, Malaysia is in the center of Southeast Asia and we in the center of Europe. So there are many similarities between our two countries, and they are far away, but I can see after a few months here, there's huge potential of doing more together.
Mm-hmm. And earlier, just before the show, we were talking outside about the various role of many companies that Austria has in Malaysia, some which are very famous, like Swarovski, that you mentioned has a global hub in Penang, for example. So looking at this, what makes Malaysia an attractive destination for Austrian investors?
First of all, it's the workforce. I mean, you've got excellent workforce, well educated. English, even on the work floor, people speak English. Mm-hmm. It's about the legal system. There's also huge support by the government, and it really is a place to be. So our companies who are here in the semiconductor industry, in automotive and hydropower, they're really happy and they want to do more. They want to expand because they see, and of course also Malaysia, as it's, as I mentioned, in the center of Southeast Asia, of course it's a hub for us, for ASEAN, but also for APEC as a whole.
And what are some of the industries that Austrian companies are in Malaysia? If you could share a little bit more about where these are.
Well, the reason why I was, for example, already 3 times in Penang and in Kulim is that we have very strong companies in semiconductor area. And then with the automotive sector, there's a cooperation with a Malaysian company. But also we are very strong in infrastructure. Mm-hmm. In hydropower, Austrian companies are active on the peninsula, but also in other parts of the country. Railways is a sector where we are strong in Malaysia. We are also, there are also several companies in logistics or in production of plastics in Kedah, for example, but also in Selangor. So all around, up to now, we have 60 companies who are here. There are many more companies who export to Malaysia. Mm-hmm. And what I hear, they're all happy here, very happy here, and they want to do more.
Right. And how do you see, for example, in the EV space, which is something that's relatively new in Malaysia, it's very exciting, and one of the things about collaboration is, of course, the technology transfer. What role do you see Austrian companies playing in terms of facilitating technology transfer and capacity building in Malaysia?
Well, EV is one excellent example. Thank you for mentioning it. Austria is not very much known abroad for its automotive industry, but we are one of the biggest producers of car parts, mm-hmm. and also for specialized cars.
What do you mean by specialized cars?
Well, I can mention some, but the specialized SUVs, and also we are producing EVs.
Right.
European and Chinese car makers are producing their EV cars partially in Austria. Okay. Because we have technology, we have the expertise, and of course this expertise we want to share with our friends from Malaysia and other countries, because we all agree that EV is the future.
Right. And any collaborations currently happening in the EV space in Malaysia?
Yeah, there are with one of the biggest Malaysian auto car producers. There already a cooperation going on, and we hope that We just had last year a great workshop on the automotive and aerospace sector with the cooperation of Malaysian organizations like MITE and Maya. And we saw there Austrian and Malaysian businesses getting together, and there have been already follow-up talks between Austrian and Malaysian companies. We're very confident that there will be more.
Now that's fantastic because as we were talking even a little while earlier, not many are known that the Austrian footprint in Malaysia's industry is quite big across all these sectors. So I'd like to take us into the topic of renewable energy and sustainability. Yeah. Now, I'm made to understand that Austria generates much of its electricity from hydropower. Perhaps you could share how much of that is generated. And of course, that Austrian companies are keen to support Malaysia's renewable energy ambitions. We have, of course, the NETR, the new national energy transition roadmap. Yeah. So what lessons or technologies can Malaysia adopt from Austria's expertise?
Well, we produce more than 90% of our electricity out of water.
Wow, that's a lot.
Well, because that's geography. On the one hand, we have the mountains. So that's where you can produce hydro energy throughout the year, but also along the river Danube. So more than 90%. We're lucky with this. But also we see in Malaysia a huge potential. And we all know that's also the future. Yeah. If we look at climate change, if we look at CO2, renewable, sustainable energy is the way forward. And also Malaysia recognizes this. And this comes to hydro, solar, wind, biomass, all things. And the importance of renewable sustainable energy is it's produced locally. We hear that here in Malaysia discussion about nuclear power. Yeah. It's forbidden in Austria. We don't use it because for a simple reason it's a dangerous technology. It's a dangerous, costly technology. Nobody knows what to do with the waste. The waste is there for millions of years. None of the countries who use nuclear energy has up to now found any solution where to put the nuclear waste.
That's an interesting proposition, if I may just jump in there, because when we look at Malaysia and our energy mix, some people I've spoken to say that, just under the NETR roadmap, it's not sufficient to look at hydro, solar, and fossil fuels. So nuclear seems to be inevitable. But you're kind of giving us hope here, especially because of the Austrian model that has worked.
It depends on the possibilities of a country. I mean, as I said, we are graced with our mountains and our rivers. Therefore, we have such a high level of hydropower. Others, of course, need to other means of energy because it's up to each nation to decide. I mean, there are countries where are no high mountains, where are no big rivers, who use coal or who use nuclear. But this is a way of cooperation. I mean, that what we offer is our transfer of technology to partners like Malaysia in hydropower and other renewables. But of course, it's up to each country. I mean, just saying that nuclear power has also its disadvantages. It's a costly. You're dependent on foreign suppliers.
Right.
Whereas biomass, and of course I also follow the discussions here, I mean, biomass is here, you use it for energy.
Right.
You've got water, so you just use your own sources, the renewable resources.
So based on what you've seen you've been in Malaysia for about 6 months now, where do you see the potential for collaboration between Malaysia and Austria in terms of sustainability and the green technology?
Well, just last year there was the International Green Tech and Eco Products Conference, IGEM. Also, Austrian companies were also there.
Right.
I've spoken to them, and they see the huge potential in areas as well. Hydropower is one thing, but there are many other sectors where can work together. Because when I talked about the potential, I've been here now for 6 months, and I'm really fascinated about the huge potential Malaysia offers and has. Because we see, I mean, you saw last year in Malaysia more than 5% economic growth.
Right.
Incredible. The trade, more than 3 trillion ringgit. I mean, it's incredible. And of course, this offers chances for cooperation between Austrian and Malaysian companies.
Right. Of course, in Southeast Asia, Malaysia is one of Austria's largest trading partners.
Yes.
Yeah, so about 700
Our exports were in 2024 700 million. The latest numbers are even better. But still, we see huge potential.
Oh, wonderful. I'd like to take us into another topic of conversation of equal importance, because earlier you mentioned the value of Malaysian talent and the workforce, right? English speaking, capable, and therefore academic cooperation is very important. Now, I was just looking at your embassy's Instagram page earlier, and there was something about a ASEA UniNet scholarships being announced, and I think it closes on the 1st of March. Perhaps you could share from your perspective, how important is academic cooperation, and what does that mean for the bilateral ties between our countries?
Yeah, well, I want to quote your Minister of Higher Education in an interview which he did for Panama in February. And this is also my personal point of view, that higher education is a powerful instrument of diplomacy that strengthens international cooperation and builds long-term trust between nations. And that's it. I mean, in Europe we call us a generation Erasmus. Mm-hmm. Everybody studying in Europe usually does half a year, one semester or 1 year abroad at a different European university. Because, of course, when working, living in another country, you get to know it much better. And, of course, I have still my personal links and affiliations to the countries I have studied. I studied in France, studied in Belgium, so I speak French, I speak Flemish, because, I mean, I lived there among French, Belgian students. Right. It was fabulous. And, of course, it's important also that we get to know each other better. Yeah. And academic cooperation is one thing. You mentioned ASEA UniNet, which is a network of nearly 100 universities in Europe and Southeast Asia. Mm-hmm. Amongst these 9 Malaysian universities and around 20 from Austria. And it's so important that we work together also in the academic field, because, as your minister himself said, that's the basis of cooperation. Yeah. And I've been approached by several Malaysian universities that we could work together on quantum physics, we could work together on AI, on STEM, on vocational training. So also in that, I don't want to repeat myself, but I see so much potential. Yeah. Because up to now, there are just a few Malaysian students in Austria and just a very few students from Austria and Malaysia. But don't forget, Austria is in the center of Europe. Mm-hmm. We are a member of the European Union. We're German-speaking countries. Mm-hmm. So when you study in Austria, this opens the whole European Union. It opens all the German-speaking countries to those students who have a diploma from Austria, for example.
Right. So employability, there's a great opportunity. Yes. I was just going to ask you to make your pitch to Malaysians who may not be as familiar, because I think many Malaysians, they know the scholarships are from other countries. So this is, even when I saw this, I thought it was quite exciting. Is there one more line you want to talk about? What, if there was one pitch you could say to the Malaysians watching at home, what would it be to apply for the scholarship?
Well, have a look at our social media and also have a look at the website Study in Austria. There's all the information. This goes for students, but also for researchers. That's also a website called grants.at. You just click and then you see which possibilities are available. But thank you for
You're welcome. No, fantastic. I appreciate the energy behind it. I'd like to take us into another topic, namely on politics and strategic outlook, because we live in a time of, I suppose, great, I don't know what you want to call it, upheaval, turmoil, uncertainty. We recently saw the US Supreme Court declaring the tariffs unconstitutional in that regard, and now there's a new 10%, 50% tariffs that the president has just announced. May I get your views on, in light of this, how important is the expected EU-Malaysia free trade agreement by 2027, and what new opportunities do you foresee this being created for Austria-Malaysia cooperation? Yeah,
thank you for mentioning it. I mean, the European Union, and also as a proud member of the European Union, is a union based on trust. It's on trust, and when you look at the current negotiation with Malaysia, now we've finished now the 3rd round of negotiations. It's on eye to eye. Right. It's at the end. Well, people ask, why don't you finish negotiations in 2 days or 3 days? No, it's at the end, and you heard it also last year that we want to finish by 2027. This will be a treaty. It will be a win-win situation for Malaysia and for the European Union. It will offer possibilities for Malaysian companies, for European companies to work more easily together. There will be, I don't know the details because I said The third round just finished a few days ago. That most probably most goods will be then without tariffs. Of course, it will make trade much easier.
And you said recently that you see Austria views Malaysia as a key player in ASEAN,
Yes.
and you have praised Malaysia's ASEAN chairmanship last year. Could you share with us what makes Malaysia such an important and strategic partner for Austria in Southeast Asia?
Well, as I mentioned, the ASEAN chairmanship by Malaysia was incredible. When you see what Malaysia achieved, I mean, the highlights, of course, I mean, Timor-Leste as the 11th member of ASEAN, also helping to achieve let's say an armistice between Cambodia and Thailand. Was really impressive. You could see the leading role of Malaysia in ASEAN, and also when you saw people coming to Kuala Lumpur, even dancing.
Yeah, that's
in
right.
Kuala Lumpur, and people came to Malaysia. I mean, it was the President of the European Council, Costa was here, there were others here. You saw the key role of Malaysia. And very often I compare Austria to Malaysia. I mean, Austria is in the center of Europe. We say in our national anthem, it's called "We are in the heart of Europe." Malaysia in the center of Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Also for our companies, for many of them, Malaysia is a hub. Not only for ASEAN but also for APAC as a whole. And that gives the special attraction of Malaysia. And for example, also from the first day on, I felt immediately so much welcomed here by Malaysia. I mean, people are so nice here, and it's a perfect place to live. And I live here now since August, but also to work.
No, that's really nice to hear. And I think what you've mentioned is the spirit of unity in diversity is very important. And I think that's also a history that Austria has experienced in the past. Recently in Europe, there was the Munich Security Conference. And there are some calls towards going back to a slightly more deinstitutionalized world order. Now, based on what Malaysia experienced in terms of this unity as well as Austria, how important is it that we continue to strengthen cultural ties, understanding one another beyond just trade in this context?
That's a very important topic. I mean, the European Union as a whole, you've realized that also last year's Indo-Pacific Ministerial, and also there was a lunch with the ASEAN foreign ministers. And there will be an upcoming meeting of the foreign ministers of EU and ASEAN end of April in Brunei, because we have to work together. I mean, in the past, the same thing goes for European Union, but also for ASEAN. We were looking at US and China mostly, but we had forgotten that they are friends elsewhere. And what we see with Malaysia, a trustful partner, and this has to be used. And of course, when it comes to culture, it's about understanding each other. That's so important. Of course, it's difficult for somebody like me who's been here just for a few months to fully understand. But I see that everybody has an open mind here and spirit here. And we work so closely together. And I think European Union for Malaysia is a trustful partner. There are not any insights, and as I said, with the upcoming FTA, it will be a win-win agreement for both sides. Nobody will feel cheated because it will be ratified by Malaysia, it will be ratified by the European Union, and everybody will say, yes, that's an agreement. We negotiated over 2 years, and here it is, and that will be the basis for our future economic cooperation, which will be even more tighter than nowadays.
And in your recent visit to Bernama a couple of weeks ago, you did hint at a high-level political visit potentially to Malaysia. Is there anything you can hint further today on the show?
Oh, well, we're in a preparation of several visits. Okay. One will be from the government side, mostly by the end of April here in Malaysia. And then another one will be most probably a parliamentary visit, because it's also important not only the government but also parliaments talk to each other. I myself will have in the next few days a meeting with the Minister of the Malaysian government, also especially with the focus of business. But tonight I'm going to be at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the iftar, but also the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs will be present. No, but there will be more to come. I will tell you more when we have the details fixed with our Malaysian friends and partners.
Of course, and you just mentioned something very important earlier, which is Iftar and the Ramadan month. So it's your first time experiencing Ramadan in Malaysia. What has stood out for you? I mean, this is just a personal curiosity I have.
Well, the thing is, the last week was, it started with Chinese New Year.
That's right.
And then after was Ramadan, which, being a newcomer to Malaysia, that you see the diversity of your country. I mean, and people of different ethnicities, of different religions, simply work together, live together. I mean, I find this impressive. I mean, it's of course, the first time for me is Ramadan to see the majority here celebrates. But it's for me it's fascinating. Like the whole of the country is fascinating because I mean whenever I go, I mean now I know the West Coast. In April I will go to the East Coast and hopefully in the near future also to Borneo. But the Ramadan is for me one. I think it's very important also for the Malay people going back to their spirits, and then it's to observe it is really impressive.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We've got a few minutes left, so and in closing, I'd like to ask maybe two quick questions. First is, as Austria continues to invest and collaborate in these various sectors, let's come back to where we started, the bilateral ties in EV, hydropower technology. What message would you like to convey to Malaysian businesses and interested in Austria? Well,
the important thing is find out more about Austria. Have a look at our social media channels because I have the problem myself here that Austria is not very much known in Malaysia. On the other hand, it's the same thing when you ask somebody in Austria, Malaysia, Petronas Towers, everybody knows.
Okay.
But then there's not much, and I mean there's no historic link between Austria and Malaysia. I mean everybody has said knows Red Bull. And others, but nobody knows it's Austrian. People know Mozart, people know classical music, and therefore, as we discussed before, it's so important, especially to promote not only business but also especially this exchange among academics, students, and also researchers to get to know each other.
Right, and I must say though, I'm quite fond of Austria because my auntie used to work for Austrade. Hi, Auntie Dorothea, if you're watching this. And she used to bring these really nice wafer chocolates. What's it called again?
Mannerschnitten. The Mannerschnitten. It's very tasty. But the other things, when you come to Austria, you have to find out. Okay. We have a great Austrian cuisine.
Yeah, I look forward to it. We've got 2 minutes left, and perhaps in closing, if I could ask you, how has your journey as Austria's ambassador to Malaysia been so far? And you did share some of your initial impressions of the country, and also having a very distinguished career in foreign diplomacy. What are your views on where we can move together? What are you looking forward to, and what are your views on where we can move together forward?
You mentioned, the world nowadays looks different from the world it was 5 years ago. And it's so important that countries or regions, Austria, Malaysia, or European Union and ASEAN work together because it's so much important, especially nowadays, a cooperation based on trust. And that's also one of my main tasks. I mean, to deepen the dialogue because we hardly know each other, but that I feel it that everybody understands there's a trust between us, and this trust is the basis of your future cooperation.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Ambassador EISL, I think that's all the time that we have for today on today's show. And I think it's been a truly enlightening conversation we've had about Malaysia-Austria bilateral ties. You've certainly opened my eyes to not just the technology and the collaboration, but the people. But also, more importantly, you've also enticed me and many of our viewers, I'm pretty sure, to look more into Austria from a business, an education, as well as a cultural perspective. So thank you for your time and for joining us on today's show. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been the Diplomatic Dispatch on The Nation here at Bernama. Till next time, take care.
Terima kasih.